RobMoro TV, and today I'm joined by Record Corners.
Love to know how much love we need to throw into this black hole, so we be true, be happy, or at least less inconsolable. I know I don't deserve love, I know it's fanciful, but when did it become so non-negotiable?
How are you guys?
Great, thanks.
And the guys just released their album today in the Cadences Of Others, which you can see here. And it must be pretty exciting to have that album now out. It's kind of maybe a relief.
Yeah, both. It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's a relief. Yeah, we have been working on it now for 2 years nearly, and I guess we put a lot into it. That we worked with a lot of different people when we were putting it together, and so like any band who's released an album, I guess it's exciting, scary, and a relief all in the one day. Yeah, so it's good.
What was the process for you guys behind it? I know you have some collaborations and stuff on it as well. When did you start recording the first sort of demos?
I guess as soon as we finished the last album, Think Nothing, our minds instantly moved on to the next thing that we were going to do. And the first step of the process was to find a location in which to record. So we sourced a chapel on the grounds of the university in which we studied. And they were kind enough to let us use their building. So unusually, I suppose, we had a location before we had a batch of songs almost. But it turned out to be sort of the perfect environment in which to work. And we almost wrote the record, or certainly composed elements of it, with the space that we were going to record it in mind. And then, as Conal mentioned, it was basically a 2-year process to get it to this point where it's in physical form and available to people.
Keep that in mind as you approach me. I have never felt more in control. I'll be here
And in terms of the songs in it, is there any kind of key influences that helped you kind of kickstart that process as well?
Maybe we were listening to Agnes Obel's album Aventine, kind of around the time where we were discussing, what our next kind of move would be and how we'd record our next record. And something that struck us about that album was the fact, just the way it flows and the way she has little kind of musical codas after songs, and they move the album from track to track. So that was something that was definitely in our minds when we set about recording this. We knew we wanted it to flow in a particular way. We knew we wanted that kind of even the sequencing of the tracks, that the key, like one key signature would almost lead naturally onto the other. So we were trying to think of ways in which to bring one song to the next and use little sort of musical devices, to do that. And one of those involves a spoken piece. Actually, Peter Broderick recorded a piece, some words that John had written, and we had a piece of music sort of for underneath that. And so just little things to keep the listener interested, but also to make it flow like a coherent piece, over the 10 tracks, because our previous records were very short and sharp, and they all clocked in under like 27 minutes, and it was kind of one very frantic short song, and to another, which was what we wanted to do at the time, but we wanted to try something different this time. And I guess Agnes Obel's album was certainly in the back of our minds when we were setting about sort of starting the recording process.
Child, now I'm a child.
And you're mentioning Peter there. You had a few other kind of filling parts on the album as well, and I suppose as a duo, you've probably expanded the sound a little bit. Is there any particular instruments that you kind of added to this record compared to Think Nothing?
Yeah, I suppose bass guitar is the most obvious starting point. So we, I think from an early stage, we decided that because the songs were going to be a little bit more patient in their composition, that they kind of needed the groove that a bass guitar brings. So Conal texted Conor O'Brien and asked if he'd be interested, and thankfully he he said who was, and he came in. Basically, we tracked that in Temple Bar. He learned the songs in the space of a day and performed them, committed them to tape, and he was just a phenomenally, interesting person to work with, to see, just to get a glimpse into how his creative process works, and which is just a very natural thing to him. And also he's just a great person to hang with. So that was I suppose the collaboration that was initially most exciting to us, and then we moved on to the sort of orchestral parts which Connell sort of directed. So we used to we hooked up with a group of string musicians, like an ensemble called the Fratres String Quintet. And they're just incredible bunch of musicians. One of them plays with the London Symphony Orchestra. Two of them play regularly with the RT Concert Orchestra. And they came in and spent a few days with us in the chapel in Drumcondra as well. And that was, again, incredibly exciting to be surrounded by those type of musicians playing arrangements for your album. It's a really incredibly fun thing to be involved with. And we also then worked with the a few members of the Book of Brass band. We had brass arrangements for some of the songs, and they came to a studio in Inchicore that we did some of the overdubbing in and a lot of the mixing in, and spent kind of a day with us there. So there was lots of different people, I guess, involved, which made it really exciting. Our previous two records, we kind of kept it to myself and John and whichever engineer we were working with. So it made for a very interesting process, and we learnt a huge amount through the process as well. And
yeah, of course, you self-produced this album as well. How would that process, obviously, as you were saying, you were learning a lot, and you're working with John Bonatti as well, I think, on the engineering side of things.
Josh mastered it. Yeah, Josh mastered it first. We actually worked. The guy who we worked with was an engineer called Peter Ashmore, who was just a phenomenal engineer, and we had met him by chance when we were doing a live gig that ended up being recorded. And he was doing the sound for it, and he just seemed really nice and seemed really on it, and liked a lot of the similar music to what we did. So we spent a huge amount of time with him over the 2 years, massive amount of time, and he worked really hard to make the album sound as beautiful as it does.
And in terms of, you're saying that you're working with the orchestras instead of Book of Brass as well. That's something you've done in a live setting as well. It's definitely taking kind of music to another dimension, I think. Is it something you really enjoy doing, do you think?
Yeah, I think we're both hugely passionate about it. We worked with a contemporary composer called John Buckley on Think Nothing, so he scored the arrangements for that, and that sort of gave us an opportunity to perform with the RT Concert Orchestra for the RT program Arena for their Culture Night special, which was just the most amazing thing to do. We played in Meeting House Square with how many players?
72, I think.
Outdoor to a live audience, playing our ridiculously lo-fi indie jams with this like symphonic beauty behind us. We went into RT to practice under the baton of
Garrod Grant.
Yeah, which was like simultaneously the most terrifying and thrilling thing we've probably ever done. And yeah, it's just a really nice thing to bring into your music, to have the opportunity to do that. We feel ridiculously lucky.
Touring, is there a plan to bring that sort of show that you on Culture Night out into kind of on the road?
Hell no. Do you know how much that would cost? No, what we've decided to do, and we talked a lot about this, because recording a record and then going on tour are two very different beasts, obviously, because when you're recording you can kind of stretch yourselves, and but I guess the way we tour, we have to keep it really kind of tight, and we wanted as well. We kind of we toyed with the idea of bringing some brass musicians and bringing some string players, and we just kind of, after a long discussion, just figured that, you know what, it's more of a challenge to do it with just the two of us, because the arrangements on the record are so big, and they're quite different songs than would have been on our previous records, that it would be a real challenge. And we almost had to go about deconstructing the songs again, sort of, you know, you when they're written, they need to be deconstructed to be recorded, and then they need to be deconstructed again to be performed kind of live. So that was a really interesting and challenging process at times, but we're really excited about the prospect of being able to actually just do it with just the two of us again, just myself and John on stage with the drums and guitar, and to see how it comes across.
And of course, I think you're starting a tour tomorrow for that, in sort of in the wake of the release as well.
Yeah, tomorrow we start our celebration lap of the country in Dundalk, followed by Cork, Galway and Dublin. So we've restricted it to just 4 dates to start off with, and then hopefully in the spring we'll bring the album to a few other places as well. So.
And I suppose another stuff you've kind of done just before the album, in terms of EP releases, you've covered Sinead O'Connor's Mandinka as well. How did that come about?
When John and I first met, it was we had a friend who was obsessed with Sinead O'Connor, and he had the line on the Cobra, that record, and he played it, and myself and John had been familiar with the song, but I remember when we heard it sort of in that context together, we were just like, this is an incredible tune, and we had always been huge fans of it, but never done anything with it. But a couple of years ago we were asked to do a thing called the JD Roots Festival, which was us and Delarantos and the Minutes were asked to come together and pick our favourite sort of Dublin songs, and collaborate on them, and the three bands to actually perform together on these songs that we had each sort of picked. And John and I, that was the first tune that came to our heads. It was like, wow, how incredible would it be to do Mandinka? And so we learned it with the Minutes and Delarantos for that, and we just loved playing it, enjoyed it, and when we decided we were releasing a single of this record called Oh, and we were thinking, right, what could accompany it? And we had some studio time left over after we finished recording the record, so we said, well, we'll try and record Mandinka, and we did, and it was just released just recently on a 7-inch. There's only a handful of copies of it, but it's Oh on one side and Mandinka on the other.
And in terms of releases, you've gone through the Delafield label and Alexi as well for a while. How did you come about working on that label?
Alexis called us in 2009 after he had seen us play, and just told us how much he liked the band. I don't think we'd had a physical release at that stage, so we were just trying to sort of find ourselves and find out what exactly we were going to do with, our thing. So Alexis, so we started talking. We kind of flirted for about 2 years, and then he offered to put out the album for us, and we were just so taken by his attention to detail. He's obsessed with design and just making really beautiful products, and he values that sort of thinking really, really highly, as well as having an amazing ear for music. I mean, some of the other artists he's put out, including Def Joe and Jennifer Evans, have it's incredibly eclectic, the sort of stuff that he puts out, and he's just a really incredible supporter of our music and a great person to work with.
And I suppose moving from the sonic side of things to the visual side, your kind of the artworks for your albums and EPs have always been very interesting. Is there a personal touch to that, or has there been any sort of outside influence?
I guess it's both personal and outside, because the record cover and all the covers for the singles that we have released thus far were designed by John's girlfriend Neve. So it's amazing to have somebody so close to the band that can help with that sort of thing, because John and I wouldn't be particularly gifted in terms of design stuff like that, but she is, and she is able to, you know, we just mentioned what type of cover we'd like, and not intending that she would be the one designing it, and a couple of weeks later she sent us a mock-up which we just adored, so it was great. So working with someone like that is amazing. And I guess then there's videos as well that we've had made. We've just been very lucky to work with some very, very talented people. Our latest single O has a video which accompanies it, which was made by Adam O'Regan, who's the guitarist in Little Green Cars. And again, he has just an incredible eye. And he and another video which is being made at the moment for another song of the record. The song is called Of Whatever, but there's a video being made by Stoneface Films, which is a guy called John Hosier Byrne, and he's making a video for it, which we're very excited about, which should be coming out soon as well.
And of course those guys have great connections too. Adam has made stuff for Little Green Cars as well, shot in Tokyo, you know, he's a great eye for that. It's for Stephen, I think, has done Balcony TV as well. So. And then of course John is related to Andrew, here, so there's kind of a great creative circle, I suppose, that kind of comes around, and in terms of being part of it too. And I suppose with the videos, in terms of the structure of them, there's like with you have images of books of World War II, kind of a couple, kind of obviously when you're not speaking to each other. Yeah. Is that sort of theme you explored yourselves, or was that something kind of written with Adam?
I suppose we met Adam and we talked broadly about the themes in the song, which are probably quite evident in the lyric. And we just really let him run with the ideas that he had. It sort of has a bit of a kind of eureka moment, somebody looking for a sort of scientific explanation to some intangible aspect of a relationship. So really we didn't seek to fill in the dots really with regard to the narrative. And I think it sort of speaks for itself, the video. It's just a hugely watchable video which we've gone back to loads of times, and we really, really like it. Yeah.
And I suppose now that this release is out, you've had the other two releases have been nominated for Choice Music Prize as well. We won't jinx it or anything, but it's but we joke in terms of it's obviously probably great to have that in your back catalogue going into recording this album. And how did you guys feel? It must be great sort of recognition to kind of say we knew we were doing well, and then you get that kind of panel to come in and say we thought your work was great. Like
definitely, yeah.
It is great. It just gives you a bit more confidence about what you're doing, particularly after the first record when we had no idea how we even sounded, let alone whether people would like it, you know, when you're that close to it. So it's just lovely to get that sort of added, I guess, recognition from your peers, and yeah, equally so with the second record. Yeah, so we won't jinx it, as you said, Rob.
Yeah, touch wood. There we go. We'll do all the superstitious stuff to get it out. But cheers, guys. Nice to meet you, and it's great to see the album in a physical format as well. On release day. And hopefully everything goes well tomorrow, and for everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
I know I annoyed you and I tried to avoid you, even though we had already locked eyes. Early intervention, a change of direction. Forever the twain shall be feigning surprise. We went from being dark horse to being a spent force in the space of what seemed like